This is going to be fun with a capital F. I hate to say this, but I was right. No, I don't hate to say it. I love to say that. Welcome, Nate G. You were first. 1,000 Pine Points to you. Thank you for loving me. I didn't get enough hugs as a child. I didn't get told that I was loved as a child, and that's why I'm an atheist today. That's the only reason. And but what I'm right about is I've known Cameron Bertuzzi for 4 years now, or known of him. He's known of me for about that same period. And I remember conversing back and forth with him. And I don't want to have to prove this. And in fact, if you're a Christian, you can assume I'm lying, but I'm not. I basically predicted that the reason why he does what he does is because of his brother, and he admitted that. But more specifically, that his brother at some point made him feel stupid for what he believes, and he got very defensive. And this defensiveness led to confirmation bias, seeking out answers to bolster what he already believed in order to get hope, meaning, and purpose. And maybe this was bad of me, but I knew from very early on exactly what buttons to push with Cameron. And I think that's why he never liked me that much. Because at that point, I think he believed, he was a fundamentalist, very conservative, believed in, and maybe he still does, eternal conscious torment, young earth creationism, all that sort of thing. I was quite sure that's where he came from. And so I knew exactly which buttons to push on things like, well, why is leaving Christianity bad? You know, trying to cajole Christians to say the word hell. It's like next to impossible, because I think deep down a lot of them are ashamed of it. Not all, but some. And yeah, so it was, I think he knew that I knew exactly where he was coming from, and to get at the root of the issue right away. He pushed back hard on street epistemology for many years. He stopped doing that now. And I think this is the reason why he did, because there was a legitimate fear that people he loved were leaving Christianity, which he believed was true, gave hope, meaning, and purpose. And there's this horrible place called hell that if you left, there's a lot at stake, horrible consequences. Hey, thank you, Joshua White, for the donation. Hopefully this can make up for some of your missed hugs. Joshua White, how dare you say that? There's nothing that can replace a hug. Actually, I'm from Canada, and Canada has more of a British culture, and so we rather drink a cup of red rose tea than have a hug. Unlike Texans, who just are very huggy, touchy-feely, like these two maybe. I think they're both from Texas. Yeah, they're from Texas. So anyhow, let's get going. So the guy on the left is Cameron Bertuzzi from Capturing Christianity. The guy on the right is his brother, Trevor. And Trevor became an atheist. And I just want to play bits, and then I want to play the questions that mostly Christians were asking him. And a lot of Christians are scared to come on this channel and ask questions because of some of you atheists in live stream chat. They're scared to be ganged up on. But I'm going to also answer some of the questions that were asked of Trevor, and I think Trevor did a great job. By the way, I think this was a huge, and I don't know, from the Christian perspective, I think this is kind of a mistake to have Trevor on, because he came across as very likable. And one thing you don't want as a Christian apologist is for other Christians to like atheists in a real, genuine way. Because as soon as you start liking people with differing points of view, you're going to become more empathetic towards those points of view. You're a higher probability you're going to accept their points of view. And so it's quite dangerous to have atheists come across as likable. Hey, good to see you here, Nathan.
Accepting of this sort of internal deconversion, official deconversion.
That was at 2.2x, a little fast for people from Alabama.
Told myself in the car, I said, I don't believe in God. And I do remember actually like feeling a weight off my shoulders. I felt liberated. I felt at peace with that kind of decision, if you want.
For those of you who were Christians who left Christianity listening now, can you resonate with him? did you feel a burden lifted from your shoulders?
Call it that, or that conclusion. And so, that didn't turn into a great life for a while, because it was an experience of feeling like I'd been lied to.
Yes, and this is why I think a lot of atheists are bitter, combative to Christians, is because they feel like they've wasted a big part of their life being lied to.
Or misled, or at least that the friends and family around me weren't as willing to question and dig deep into the issue.
Riz Zard, I love Christians. I sleep with one.
Or whatever, I don't know. And so that's kind of, is that enough, or should I go into like marriage and like where I'm at now? Should I go all the way?
Yeah, go ahead.
But that was a major turn.
That's how it started, right? Was Apple, and
really
starting to
Apple.
question your faith.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to point out that I think.
So basically, he started making friends at Apple where he worked, and they started having genuine conversations, sincere conversations, and he started to doubt, and that led him to research other things, I guess, which led him to slowly shift his beliefs. And this is exactly what I was saying. This is why the internet is where religions come to die, is because now you can actually make real friendships, have real conversations. Sometimes, most of the times it's just blabber back and forth, but you can hear people from the other side of the pond give their opinions on things, say why they believe or don't believe things, and you can say, hey, you know what? I understand that. That makes sense to me, and maybe I should give this more of a listen.
I wasn't able to see early on was the value in what you were going through and experiencing, and the value there is just seeking truth, like regardless of what you grew up believing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that describes me.
And how difficult that is.
I was willing to seek truth so much, and I've given this advice before, that you almost have to, if you're a Christian, you almost have to come from the perspective is, I'm willing to go to hell. I will put truth above hell. I know that sounds, for a Christian, that won't make sense. I don't think, for some Christians. But it's almost like you're willing to risk it all, like that Pascal wager thing, if you believe in eternal conscious torment. And you're saying, look, I'm even willing to cut off my relationship with Jesus if it's not true.
And how much courage it takes to be able to do that. And I couldn't see the value in that. And so all I wanted to do was be defensive and just argue you back into the kingdom.
Yeah.
I didn't see value in like seeking truth just because truth is valuable.
Right.
And so I didn't see a whole lot of value in what you were experiencing or going through. Mm-hmm. But now it's like completely different. I think that we have a whole lot more respect for each other.
For sure.
And where we've come. Yeah, well, why don't you talk a little bit more where you've...
Okay, so he goes on a little bit more. You guys can watch this for yourself. I really want to get into the questions that the Christians ask him. And you can tell, I'll be very honest, you can tell the ignorance of some Christians. It's just like, all this is a mind-blowing, foreign to them. Like, they just don't understand where guys like Trevor are coming from. And let's see here. Yeah, one question. The first one I'll play is, do you wish there was a God?
All right, so here's a question. This is a super chat from Caleb Jackson. Let me center it up on the screen so we can see it. Okay, hi, Trevor. Are you disappointed that there is no God? I.e., do you want there to be a God, or would you prefer atheism to be true?
Very good question. So I am not disappointed that there is no God. I like the idea that...
Hey, thank you. Show Vertica finally caught a live stream thanks to T-Jump's Discord. Well, right on. Your work is awesome. PineCreek, appreciate you. I really appreciate your donation.
If there was a God, that he would be super good, but I just don't know what that would look like. I mean, the Christian God to me wasn't like...
Say it.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, you do. Just say it, Trevor. The Christian God is, I think in a lot of people's, not even atheists, a lot of people view the Christian God as evil. And what's the basis of evil? What's your standard of evil? I just hear that the precepts are living inside my head rent-free. But for a lot of Christians, the whole Old Testament is a real problem. Jesus commanding the death of women and children. Yes, Jesus, if you're a Trinitarian. And even in the New Testament, like if you are a ECT, eternal conscious torment type Christian who believes in a literal hell, traditional view of hell, You got to remember the words of Jesus. He said, I think in Matthew, that if you deny me before men, I will deny you before my Father. And don't fear the one who can destroy the body, but fear the one who can destroy the soul, whether that's referring to God himself or the devil, doesn't matter. The point is that this Jesus that so many people think is this great, loving deity basically commands you to forget your family, forget your friends, forget your job, follow him, at least that was his words to the disciples, and that he, doesn't matter if there's an argument between two people who've been misbehaving toward each other, Jesus can forgive both of you, even though it's none of his business, but he's God, so I guess it is his business. Vicarious redemption is what I'm getting at, is an evil concept that even C.S. Lewis admitted was evil if any man were to do it, but if a God does it, then it's okay. And Jesus spoke about hell more than any other person, at least it's reported. So this, and if you read the book of Revelation, for goodness sake, about Jesus coming on a white horse and just kicking butt, this Jesus is not what I think a lot of, those ladies with the flowery dresses that go to church and who just praise Jesus during a Sunday morning. Like, they're not thinking about that type of Jesus that I'm describing. And I don't think I'm straw manning Jesus here. I think there's a lot of, especially those pre-supper men who would agree with me. Yeah, Jesus isn't this little hippie child. He had a force to him. Okay, I'm going to fast forward it to someone asking, what would it take for you to question your atheism? I thought that was an interesting question.
Yeah. Is there anything that you now feel might make you question your atheism?
Yeah, I mean, if some figure came down to the earth and very clearly, communicated with all of humanity and could be detected by either our senses and or scientific instruments, I think that would be fair reason to believe in God, yeah. Or whatever that being may be, I would still go on the path of wanting to understand what that thing is.
Trevor, my advice to answering that question is use something out of the Bible that will resonate with Christians. And so that's why I always use 1 Kings 18. There's precedent for 1 Kings 18, water-drenched wood. Pray in the name of Jesus that it will be lit on fire in test conditions like James Randi test conditions. I tell you, that would raise my confidence high enough, I believe, that I would believe that Christianity is true or that there's some supernatural thing out there. Now, a lot of atheists disagree with me on this, but using the Old Testament apologetic of Elijah in 1 Kings 18 is beautiful. And the thing is, here's a button pushing here. Christians don't like that answer. They will admit, a lot of them, that it happened and that many people were converted because of it. And that's a good thing, right? To follow Yahweh. But they don't like that answer because deep down, I think they know with a capital K that that's not going to happen today. Now, they might say, well, yeah, God could do that, but that's not how he works. Haven't you read the scriptures, PineCreek? If you're not going to believe the scriptures, you're not going to believe water-drenched wood being lit on fire. But you can call me a liar, but I think that would raise my confidence. And I think anybody, and watching someone being risen from the dead with your own eyes. My sister died 3 months ago. My favorite uncle died 2 months ago. There's thousands of people who know that they're dead. And many people saw her be put in the ground. There's even video footage of it. Pray in the name of Jesus that they'll be raised to life. And that the next time I go to Canada, I'll see them. I tell you, that has to raise the confidence of any human being on this planet. But Christians hate that answer because they know that's not going to happen or probably won't happen. And so they fall back on apologetics. Or philosophical arguments for God.
But yeah, I don't know what it would be besides something very clear and like cartoony, really, because what would it be? I mean,
Yeah, what would it be? Try 1 Kings 18 next time. Okay, I'm going to fast forward it to a question on Christianity and science, because I think one of the reasons why Trevor left had to do with science.
American Scientific Affiliation.
So no, I'm pretty terrible at reading, honestly. So what I really do is watch a lot of documentaries. I listen to a lot of podcasts, which
I can just tell the detail-oriented philosophical types who love to delve into the minutia of stuff, when they hear Trevor say, I don't like reading, they're just like, I'm judging you. Of course you left Christianity because you don't like to read. But he later says that he listens to a ton of audiobooks. But this is from SciGart, which I think a lot of people know of. Have you read books by Christian scientists like Francis Collins, Alistair McGrath, etc.? Do you know about Christians who accept all the science like BioLogos or the American Scientific Affiliation? What's interesting about a question like this is Sci is asking, but look, there's these smart scientists who believe in God and Jesus, so why can't you? And the thing that I think a lot of them are forgetting, a lot of Christians are forgetting, is I'm not sure about Alistair McGrath, but I know according to Francis Collins' own words, he did not become a Christian because of the scientific evidence. He became a Christian because he went for a walk and he saw a stream that was frozen into 3 parts, and it reminded him of the Trinity. He already had these ideas of Christianity floating in his head beforehand. More times than not, it's to serve a need, a deep existential, emotional need in a person, and they're seeking out some meaning, hope, purpose, and they get that in Christianity. Hey, thank you so much, Edgar Yukuri, for the donation, a small donation. No, that's a pretty big donation for the home office in Wichita, Kansas. Yeah, thank you, Edgar. The COVID-19 has really hit the Wichita office hard. I hate to say that I had to let some of the staff go, but I'll hire them back when everything blows over, and your donation will help pay their wages.
Are authors that at least get into the subject matter, but I'm looking for ideas at a high level, and it's not that, I mean, look, I want to read more. I think I should, and I did buy a few books since you mentioned it. I was like, shit, I guess I should.
You should do.
Yeah, so the whole science thing, I think this is another thing that Christians use to not feel stupid for what they believe. It's like, look, we got all these scientists who believe in Jesus, so you should too. Okay, here's a question on, I thought this was a great question.
Things are. I go back to that we all live by stories. And
the question is, hi, Trevor, do you think that Christianity was something that could be invented by humans? As you read about other religions, are there any differences? You can just feel the Christianity pour out of the pores of Camille Joseph. He puts it in question form, which is great. But it's like Mr. Joseph is asking, isn't this impossible that this is just made up? Like, think about it. This just can't be invented by humans. There was one of my subs or someone on Twitter, I forget who asked the question or challenged Christians with this. Explain the Book of Mormon. Explain the Church of Latter-day Saints using just naturalistic explanations. Just purely natural. No, don't put demons in there. How in the world could Mormonism start? How in the world could Islam start? How in the world could Christianity start on a completely naturalistic explanation? This is a great question about getting the Christian to imagine how you could have everything in the New Testament exist as is, and yet Jesus Christ not being raised from the dead. And for most Christians who are evangelical types especially, they can't imagine that. The only way they can imagine that is to say that there was some huge conspiracy theory, or that everybody was lying about everything. And no, that's not the case. just like Mormons stole or borrowed from Christianity, Christianity borrowed from Judaism, Judaism borrowed from the religions in their culture before them. And so these are stories that were developed to help give people hope, meaning, and purpose.
Mythology is still valuable stories to understand our world. And sometimes it's metaphorical, sometimes it's very literal, and but they're all stories. So I really think, yeah, humans could have easily invented a religion.
Well, I mean, and Christians have to believe that too. Like,
Yeah,
Christians
all
believe that
religions,
Islam
right?
was invented.
Yeah, as you read about.
Yeah, good point, Cameron. Christians do believe Islam and Mormonism was invented by humans. Now, some Christians will say that there was demons involved. Like maybe Muhammad did see a demon in the cave and it was trying to get people away from Christianity. But for the same reason that Christians believe that Paul truly saw Jesus on the road to Damascus, according to Acts, just like Muslims truly believe that Gabriel spoke to Muhammad in the cave, just like Mormons truly believe that Jesus spoke to Joseph Smith wherever he was. But the problem with the later religions is the evidence is too good. It's too detailed, and so it's easier to pick apart. Christianity is much older, and it's a little tougher. And plus, a lot of things we just don't have anymore.
About other religions, is there any difference?
Okay, yeah, and the second part of the question is there any difference? It's like Christians have this deep desire to have everyone on the planet know that, but ours is special. Ours is the only religion that says this. Ours is the only one where our leader is still alive and came back to life. Ours is special. Ours is unique. Does something being special or unique make it more likely to be true? Think about that question, Christians. If your answer is yes, shame on you. Because every religion has one part of it that's very special or unique that's hard to find in other religions. I don't actually think even the concept of grace is unique to Christianity. Okay, let's fast forward it to the topic of doubts.
He mentioned back in about 2011.
Yeah,
so that's when it started.
I didn't. Yeah, it happened probably in a span of 3 months of just once the question came up that I was okay to search, or I told myself that it was okay to search. Yeah, within 2 or 3 months, I kind of made my mind up, and I gotta say, I don't think I really relied on questioning Christians on this information because I had all the stories. I felt like I was the one, defending it at Apple for a good year and a half.
Yeah, great point, Trevor. This is the thing. There's this misconception by a lot of Christians that if you left Christianity, you didn't understand or know the true Christianity. And that's total BS. I bet you 1,000 Pine Points, 10,000 Pine Points, that Trevor knew Christianity better than Cameron Bertuzzi, his brother, 4 years ago, whenever this happened. He could defend Christianity way better than Cameron could. I'm quite confident. I bet you Cameron could say, yeah, you're right, Doug. This is why Cameron had to go on this journey to seek out evidence to confirm what he already believed. So it's not a matter of, Trevor just didn't get the answers. He had questions and he didn't read this or go to certain Christians to get these answers. No, he already knew the answers. But something clicked in him that said, these answers are no longer sufficient for me.
Explaining Christianity through these conversations, and it was when I didn't have the answers, I didn't necessarily trust anybody else to give me straight answers because, like I said, it felt like I'd been lied to, or at least misled, and so it's like, how much are you gonna really?
Well, I do remember, I had someone meet with you.
Yeah,
and so
I thought
I called. I wonder who that person was, and if they feel bad that they fell flat.
that was like after the fact, right?
Yeah. It was later on, but I think that's worth
that's
mentioning
still,
that you
for
did
sure.
meet with people.
Yes,
but that was sort of after you had already kind of
Yes.
made up your mind. But you did meet with people. So how did those conversations?
No, I know that there's some Christians out there who are saying, well, how closed-minded are Trevor? He's already made up his mind. He's closed off to Christianity. But now think about this and try not to be a hypocrite if you're a Christian. Are you truly, truly open to just rejecting Christianity altogether? Now, you can still believe in deism or some other type of whatever, that the supernatural exists, but specifically Christianity. If you're going to say, oh, bad Trevor having made up his mind already, haven't you already made up your mind about Christianity? Aren't you willing to die for Christ? Are you? If you're willing to die for Christ, you pretty much have made up your mind, haven't you? If you expect guys like me and Trevor to be truly open to changing our minds to Christianity, and I do have markers in my life that would change my mind, I believe, you should have the same, just to be fair.
Go.
They didn't really always go great because it was a debate of ideas.
Yes, Darkin. By the end of this video, I didn't want to spoil this, but by the end of this video, Cameron leaves Christianity.
That are very, complex. And once again, I was like new to it, discussing it with people that were very like well versed in scripture and stuff like that. So it was approaching the situation knowing that I kind of had to do it. All of my family wanted to try their best, and
including me.
And yeah. And so I knew I was going to approach it like protective of myself and defensive of myself, saying, I need to be able to believe this inside of me, not have you tell me that this thing should be believable or whatever. So yeah, I was like definitely defensive, but at the same time, I think they were like cordial and really trying to get to the details of how we know what things are true and stuff. And but yeah, none of them.
Yeah, can you imagine? This didn't happen to me because I live about 2,000 miles away from my family. But can you imagine coming out as a non-Christian or an atheist, and all your family are still Christians, and then you're sitting in a living room at some type of family gathering and having to, you got some splaining to do, explain this to us. It's like, there's probably a lot of closet atheists. Christians, are you listening? You have family members who probably don't believe 95% of what you do, but you don't know it because they don't say it. Because they don't want to have to get a barrage of questions or accusations or fear-mongering from you. Okay, next question was, I think it was another question on what would it take for you to become a Christian, I think.
We've kind of already talked about that in the earlier part of the video.
But I mean, did they like pay for this question?
They did.
Oh, okay, so...
They paid for the question, so you might as well answer it again.
Because you said you need some like specific person to come down.
Yeah, some sort of being. He could be a being. Like, why couldn't he make himself to be a being and prove it?
Well, he did in Jesus. So, but
we need another. Clearly, we need another.
Well, so tell me, why couldn't you just explain that person that comes to you as like some crazy person?
Well, that's the thing.
Why would that be the proof for you?
Well, it wouldn't be a person. I would need it to be some like ghost? Miraculous.
But why wouldn't you just
thing.
Explain that as like a hallucination or something like that?
Yeah. Well, so I would.
Well, and this is why I think Trevor should have said the 1 Kings 18 thing, because I think there was hundreds of people there. You could have, look, if you had people of 10 different religions from 10 different countries, from 10 different cultures, sit in a room that's full of atheistic scientists with testing conditions, and basically you replicate 1 Kings 18 with all these different gods being represented, and you got like 5 different cameras from 5 different organizations, and the water-soaked wood lights on fire. Like, at some point, I think you can say, no, you can rule out things like hallucinations or group hallucinations and so forth. You can rule out a lot of things and say, look, there's something going on here that is totally bizarre. You can at least say that. And then if it only lights on fire from the people praying in the name of Jesus and nobody else, and you can say, take that one step further. Why does it work with Jesus and not anybody else? But then Christians will say, well, maybe that was a demon or Satan. But anyhow, you got people to get their confidence higher in the supernatural realm by just doing simple experiments like that. But again, Christians hate that because they know that probably will never happen. Okay. Another question about science.
Yeah, you said that at the beginning. It's like the first chapters of Genesis are inconsistent with what you found in science.
Yeah. Right? I mean, evolution was such a major one because in Christianity, there's such this idea that humans are the ultimate God-like child, or whatever, God-like being. Yeah, created being. And that we, had direct connection to God and stuff like that. Where was I going with that? That is really taken away quickly. I mean, at least it was in my view at the time.
He's right here. Trevor's exactly right. If atheism, if there's no God, on a cosmic scale, humans are not special, and that is too much to handle, I think, for a lot of humanity. Now, but the thing is, you're still special to your family. Hopefully, you're special to some friends if you have friends. Hopefully you have some self-worth. And I am totally content with humanity not being special in the ultimate sense, and I can still go throughout my day just fine. In fact, compared to other species on this planet, like I just bought a full-blood German Shepherd puppy, and it's incredibly smart. It's an amazing dog. And I dare to say that dog is more special than some human beings. And I bet you most Christians would even agree with that. Like if they had a choice between destroying my German Shepherd puppy or destroying a known pedophile, which one would you destroy first? Doesn't that say something? Ugh.
There are Christians that believe in evolution. I totally get it now. But it was a stark contrast to say, no, all animals, all plants, all fungus evolved on this earth through a process that we can see through DNA and fossils all around the world. The evidence is very clear and consistent, and we can
see. And this is the amazing thing about this. There are many Christians, and I dare say most, who accept evolution via common descent on the planet. I don't know if I'd buy that. Part of me thinks, nah. But in the United States, that's not the case. I think most American Christians don't accept evolution. Is that true? It's close anyhow. But here's the thing. Here's the kicker. If you're a Christian listening and you got in a time machine and found Jesus 2,000 years ago and asked him about evolution, do you honestly, if it was just you and him talking, do you honestly think Jesus would say, oh yeah, evolution via common descent's true, yeah? No, Adam and Eve, literal in the garden? Seriously, no, Duck, come on. No, Eve, that's just a story. Like, Eve wasn't created from the rib of Adam. No, that's just poetic imagery and so forth. Come on, get real. Do you think Jesus would reply that way? Or do you think Jesus would say something like, haven't you read the scriptures? Doesn't it say in Genesis chapter 1 that Adam was formed from the dust and Eve from his rib? If you're a Christian listening, I think you have to go with the latter answer. And if you do, and if you accept evolution via common descent, I think you have a huge problem on your hands. That you worship a God who just didn't know stuff. He was ignorant of stuff. Your child who's in grade 6, who studies astronomy and science, knows more about science than Jesus did. This has to, I think, cause you some cognitive dissonance.
To turn back the tables on the movements of the continents and the evolution of all sorts of different creatures and mass extinctions and why they occurred and all that sort of stuff. So
Great point about with the mass extinctions. Like, God created the dinosaurs, and then what was it, 150 million years ago, 50 million years ago, whenever it was, allowed a huge rock to fall in the Gulf of Mexico and cause massive extinctions. It's like, okay, he created everything, but he was okay to let most species go extinct. Okay, the next question has to get to defensiveness, which I think my prediction of Cameron Bertuzzi shows was correct.
We can both talk about it.
Yeah.
So I'll start since you've been talking the whole time. So I discovered eventually that coming at Trevor with arguments was not going to work.
Yeah.
Like coming at him using arguments as like a weapon.
right.
This is interesting. Does this not demonstrate from Cameron's point of view that arguments for God does not work with most people? At least it didn't work with his brother. He's admitting here. So what, now, got to keep in mind, apologetics is arguments, evidence, reasons to believe, right? It's defending Christianity. And Cameron's admitting apologetics had no effect on his brother. What is apologetics for then? It's for the believers, mostly. I will say mostly. It's to help them not feel stupid for what they believe, to build their confidence so they can keep having their hope, meaning, and purpose.
To get him to believe in like God or Christianity, that doesn't work. So what I had to realize was that I needed to do away with that, temporarily at least,
Do away with apologetics
and just focus on loving him as my brother.
and focus in on relationship, which is smart on Cameron's behalf, because I think we're emotional creatures. I truly believe that if someone wants to convert me to Christianity, the way you do it is the way to have even a hope of doing it, is to find someone I respect and, dare I say, love, who thinks differently than me, build a relationship, and then you start going through the evidence, because there's all these roadblocks and so forth. But I'm pretty dead inside. So for me, things like a miracle, 1 Kings 18, and watching people being raised from dead to life in front of my own eyes, that I think would raise my confidence.
And so once I like forgot about trying to get something out of him every time we had a conversation, and instead just like, this is my brother, I love him, like let's just go hang out and just,
Simple terms,
if we talk about something, it organically comes up, then that's fine, and we don't have to get like defensive about it. And so that's what I started to focus on. But another piece of this was, I think that defensiveness and anger in conversations, and I noticed this because in the first conversation that we had, I was getting defensive because of how insecure I was in my beliefs.
I was getting defensive because of how insecure I am in my beliefs. Cameron, are you still insecure in your beliefs? Are you still defensive in your beliefs? And if not, what changed? Is it apologetics that has made you more confident now? And so now you don't because feeling insecure, being defensive is not a good feeling, right, Cameron? Being made to feel stupid. I hate that phrase. It's more like someone saying something that causes you to feel stupid. It's not a good feeling. What changed? It's bombarding yourself with evidence that leads you to the conclusion that you already want to believe. It helps raise your confidence that it's true, and then that helps lower your defenses. It's like, oh yeah, you atheists, you can say all that stuff about divine hiddenness and the problem of evil. Yeah, but don't worry. Me and the boys, we got it all figured out. We're okay. All the evidence of the resurrection. Yet, yeah, I understand that you have, it's more likely that people lied or that one or two people hallucinated, and then it's a legend, a story that grew afterwards. Yeah, I understand that. But come on now. I have the minimal facts
about Christianity and what I thought I knew about Christianity. So once I started to understand the role that insecurity plays in getting defensive and angry and upset and loud.
This is so ironic to me because I see my friend reads in the live stream chat from Cordial Curiosity, great channel, go check it out. Street epistemology. It's like, Cameron, why were you pushing back against street epistemology all those years when one of the prime reasons for people using the Socratic method was to help avoid all this crap of defensiveness and insecurities and so forth? To actually listen to people, repeat back what they have to say, then as a team work together to critically examine one's deeply held beliefs. Why were you pushing back on that if you're now admitting that this is what you needed to do with your brother? In fact, I remember, if you go back to Modern Day Debates channel when I was on with Inspiring Philosophy, I put up a blurb that Cameron himself wrote on what I should say before I do street epistemology with any Christian. And it was just like, warning, I'm here to manipulate you and trick you, and I'm not, I'm feigning being nice and all this stuff. If I had time, I'd bring it up now, but I still have it on my hard drive here. But it's like, you could just tell this defensiveness and insecurities was exuding from Cameron because this belief was so precious to him. And he was seeing guys like me leading people away from Christianity, just like what happened to his brother. And he doesn't want that. But now he's recognizing that using apologetics on people like Trevor doesn't work. So now he's trying a new strategy, love. If I just give my brother a big hug, he'll come back to Jesus. I just have to demonstrate the love that Jesus has given me to my brother. But here's the problem with that, Cameron. And the problem is, there are people of different religions in this world who can love way better than you, Cameron. That is the truth. Have you met Mormons? Some Mormons can be the most loving people, kind, giving, caring people that I've ever met in my life. In fact, I have met Muslims that have been the most kind, caring people I've ever met in my life. Hey, thank you for the donation, Michael Goodpaster. For a good example of insecure apologetics, see PineCreek's chat with Josh Swamidas. Just listen to that. Wow. Yeah, I spent an hour trying to... Oh, I regret that interview, by the way. Yeah, that was... Ugh. But anyhow. And then you got me monologuing on an aside here, but a friend of Josh's, wanted to talk to me, and I've been reaching out to him like 4 or 5 times, trying to get him on, and he teaches apologetics. And I guess maybe he's been starting to watch my content, and he's like, he's not responding to my emails anymore. Or I get the impression he doesn't want to come on. But this is just, the irony is so rich here of how Cameron Bertuzzi's whole social media presence was built upon pushing back on street epistemology. And yet now he's taking this approach with his own brother. He would never call it street epistemology, but he's basically saying it's now a relationship and listening to his brother and being genuine and sincere and not arguing or pushing back, not giving arguments and evidence, but just hearing each other out in a civil conversation.
Once I...
Like what you were trying to do with that?
Well, once I realized that that's what was causing it,
yeah,
then I determined I'm not going to have any more conversations with you until I figure that out for myself.
Nice.
And
Wow.
I can stop being defensive.
Yeah.
And that's also
and I predicted this years ago, that this is why Cameron was so passionate about finding evidence to justify his position, is because that level of defensiveness and insecurity in Cameron must have been sky high. And that feeling was just so terrible. He had to, for survival, find something to gird his belief. But it's a fascinating thing to see two brothers who one goes one way, the one goes the other, both raised the same way. What causes that? It's an interesting question. Oh, okay. One of the Christians asked, and in my opinion, it's a stupid question, but it's one that's often asked.
Percent. And
especially after going to Houston Worship Center.
yeah,
right?
yeah, I was serious.
Okay, the question is, did you ever have a relationship with Christ, or did you just go through the motions? See, the question from Hawk Girl here is showing that it's like they can't compute this. This does not compute. If someone has a true relationship with Jesus, you're not going to leave that. If you've experienced the God of the universe through Jesus Christ, if you've walked with him, prayed, it's just like, how could this be? Well, the thing is, the belief that you have a personal relationship and that being true is the same feeling as the belief of having a relationship and that not being true. It's the same feeling. It's the same emotion. It's the same intellectual awareness, because you don't know you don't have a relationship. You just think you do. And that belief is so strong, it becomes almost like a schizophrenic relationship inside your own head. Now, do I believe I had a relationship with Christ when I was a Christian? Yes, but it was a figment of my imagination. This is why I love the thought experiment of, if Jesus left you and forsook you for a time, but didn't tell you, how would you know the difference? You still strongly believe he is there and answering your prayers, listening to your prayers, communing with you. The belief is still there, but he actually isn't. What would be the markers in your life to figure out the difference? And that's a tough question for Christians to answer, because they basically just have to assume that because the scriptures are true and he said he would never leave me, then he hasn't left me. So it's a done deal.
Serious about it. Yeah, I rejected all things about the world and about even school. I cut myself off from, not that I even like tried to, well, I was about to say, well, anyways, it's a little awkward. I was like,
What are you saying?
all I'm saying is I like didn't have a girlfriend or even friends, like
Okay, so the PineCreek theorem is not the reason why Trevor left Christianity.
close friends in high school, because I was so convinced that the church life was really the more valuable thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, actually, I do have a couple of high school friends that I still talk to, and they might be watching. But yeah, it was this thing.
Did
where
you tell him about it?
Told a couple people. I forget if I told Robert.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Continue.
But yeah, so it was this thing where I was very serious about my convictions, and I wanted to stand by them. But at the same time, I can't say.
Nielsen Fulkin makes a great comment. If his brother turns back to Christianity in a year, Cameron will be the king of the apologist empire. Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people will say, well, look, it's because of Cameron's YouTube channel and his being a loving Christian brother that led him back to Christ. But I don't know if I'll play this in the future, or if I already played it, or maybe I skipped over it. But there was a question on how much of Cameron's material does Trevor listen to, and it was 2 out of 200 videos or something like that. Trevor does not care about Cameron's content, just like my own family doesn't care about my content. It's for the reason that Cameron himself even admitted, that when he was talking about Christianity, it's just like they both got defensive and things didn't work out, and so it just wasn't worth it.
That I read my Bible like a lot, or really dove deep into like theology, like what my interests were. It was tricky. My interests were more music and friends and God, like playing music and having an emotional, spiritual experience were the most amazing times. And I still understand what
Christians they're going to latch on that. Here, listen to this. Hey, thank you for the donation, Scott Duke. I wonder how many of Trevor's family tried to guilt, shame, and manipulate him back into the faith. Keep up the good work, Doug. Thank you for the donation. I don't know. I listened to this very quickly the first time. It didn't sound like there was a lot of that. It sounded like Trevor basically mostly interacted with his brother Cameron, maybe, but I'm not sure.
And God, like playing music and having an emotional, spiritual experience were the most amazing times. And
Yeah, and so some Christians are going to listen to that and say, see, Trevor was just a Christian because of this emotional type of experience, and he wasn't rooted in truth, into the intellectual, reasonable side of Christianity, and that's why he fell away. You can just hear that coming.
Still understand what that those were real experiences in their own way. And
but what's interesting about this, if these experiences were not real, and that's why he left Christianity, and that he didn't have this foundation, Christians, maybe you should doubt your personal experiences of God too. Now, you might say, well, Doug, I'm rooted in the Word. I'm the seed that was planted on fertile soil. The seed that Trevor was thrown onto was rocky ground, and it never took root. But I have taken root. Well, you say that now, but what about 5 years from now? When you start to question and doubt a few things, maybe you are not that seed that was planted in fertile ground. Maybe those personal experiences you've had that you're sure was Jesus talking to you. You know what you saw, right? That day in summer camp, you know what you experienced there, right? At Bible camp? Maybe you didn't. Maybe you are just like Trevor.
And they were amazing and valuable. But yeah, I guess on a traditional go through the motions sort of stuff, I was bad with a lot of that stuff. But no, I was definitely had a relationship.
Mm-hmm. All right, here's not a question, but a comment. Jay Shy, thank you for your super chat, Jay. Trevor, I recommend Inspiring Philosophy's video on divine hiddenness.
Yeah, this is okay. If you're a Christian watching right now, some of you might be tempted to to say stuff like this to non-believers. Oh, divine hiddenness is a problem for you? All you have to do is watch this video by so-and-so, and you'll change your mind. Maybe, but it seems like Cameron himself admitted that it's not going to work with his brother Trevor. There's apologetics in Mormonism. There's apologetics in Islam. They all have answers to problems like divine hiddenness. That's just not the way God works anymore. If you're not going to believe the scriptures, you're not going to believe if Jesus stood right in front of you. You know, things like this. So I don't know. It's like I'm a free speech guy, and I watch a lot of Christian content. Most of the things I watch is Christian content. But for certain people, what changes their mind, and I don't know why this is, it's concrete empirical type evidence. And I think Trevor leans that way. And so just coming up with an excuse or a reason why God might be hidden is not going to cut it.
So Inspiring Philosophy is a Christian apologist, and he's one of the more popular ones. He has I don't know, I haven't checked recently, but I would guess around 150,000 subscribers. So his videos are really good.
Nice.
And he has a video on the question of why isn't God more obvious?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, interesting.
Good video, interesting video you might want to check out. That's all he's trying to say. All right, Adrian Lawson, thank you for your super chat, Adrian. I really appreciate you guys sending in all of these questions as super chat. It really helps me out personally. All right, sorry if repetitive. Is there anything the Bible teaches that would prevent you from becoming a Christian, even if the evidence was fully convincing?
That's interesting. So it depends on if I would go to heaven or hell, I guess. I mean, if I have to go through the motions of believing in a terrible God, then I would,
Yeah, this is the Pascal wager thing. It's like, if hell, eternal conscious torment were true, the traditional view of hell was true, do you just accept this? You have to worship an evil God in order so your pain will be less? The problem with this is, if this God has any amount of power in terms of knowing what's inside you, what you're thinking, wouldn't this God realize that the only reason why you're worshiping him is because you don't want to have pain? And maybe that's good enough for this God, but I think a lot of Christians would push back on that. No, God would say, oh, you don't really love me. You just want to avoid pain. But this is a fairly good question. And when people ask me this type of question, I usually say, if 1 Kings 18 happened, if I witnessed a raising of the dead of people I really know or have known, I probably would become like a Pete Enns type Christian, which rejects most of the scriptures as being historically true, except for maybe the resurrection. And you become like a very mere type of Christianity type person, a basis for explanation and morality and all that sort of thing. But that's about it. Okay, I want to fast forward it to, this is a question that a lot of Christians ask. This is from Carmel Crunk. Did the universe come into existence? When Christians start to doubt, they either go really big or really small. And if they're trying to convince someone who's doubting, they either go really big or really small. So what do I mean by that? I mean, big picture stuff is the really big stuff. Like, where did we come from? Why is there something rather than nothing? What's the standard morality and so forth? So that's the really big. Then the really small is, but I've experienced Jesus in my life. I saw a demon-possessed person being exorcised. Exorcised? They'll go to either when it really gets tough with the doubts, they either go right inside their own brain with personal experiences, or they'll ask questions about things way out there in the cosmos.
She says, did the universe come into existence?
Yeah, very interesting one. So I guess I don't know. I think
this question is so misunderstood because I think a lot of Christians' minds, when they hear the word universe, and they notice it's small u, not capital U, they think our reality. And I think it's pretty safe to say that our reality came into existence about 13.5 billion years ago. The clock started running from the expansion of the singularity, or whatever you want to call it. But the real question is, did everything prior to that, if that even makes sense, or if there's other universes, if that even makes sense, is the sum total of all realities, did that come into existence? And I think the answer to that question is, we don't know. To me, it seems more reasonable, though, to say that probably something material, maybe not in our time, not in our space, but not in our type of material, but something material probably always existed, going back in time, if that even makes sense. To me, that's more reasonable to say that compared to postulating a new type of thing, like supernatural, whatever that means, or a god, whatever that means, that was the first something, or was the something that caused our reality. But I just know that what I just said is not going to resonate with most Christians.
Do you think it's been around forever? So you don't have to say like definitive 100% this happened.
Yeah.
Where would you say you lean? Like what? Would you lean toward it coming into existence, or would you lean toward it just being here forever?
Yeah,
as a complete non-expert, like both of us.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I really just don't know. I mean, I value the evidence of the Big Bang and what we can know from that. And then, of course, there are good theories on the multiverse and the fact that there can be an expansion and then a
contraction.
I can just hear Christians saying, no, that's been disproven. That can't happen.
Over...
I know that because William Lane Craig said so.
Multiple universes or whatever. Like, that could be the life span of the universe. I just don't know, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So this is a good one. Also, why do I get Cookie Monster vibes from your beard? You're doing it.
Yeah,
maybe
sometimes.
Maybe it's because I'm looking.
I'm going to. Now I'm like going to stare at it.
Just stare at it the whole time. Awkwardly. All right, Andrew Stone, thank you for your subscription.
Okay, I'm bringing up this question for a reason, because Christians, please know that when you ask questions like this, many atheists will look at you and just think you're stupid. Because here's the question. Explain the North Star constellations always constantly being the same since written history, if not for God. Earth spinning while rotating around the sun. The sun is moving through the Milky Way in our ever-expanding universe. Explain that, you atheist. The uniformity of nature. This is a question that basically says, see, you can't explain why, therefore, God. If this is not the textbook definition of God of the gaps, I don't know what is. And I think even a lot of Christians can see this. But you can flip this right back on. Explain to me, Andrew Stone, how God keeps the North Star and the constellations being constantly being same throughout history. Explain exactly how God keeps the earth spinning while rotating around the sun. Explain to me exactly, Andrew Stone, how God has the sun moving through the Milky Way in our expanding universe. I want to know, Andrew Stone, the exact mechanism of how God does that. It is a question screaming for explanation, is it not? And if you can't explain how God does that, well, why should I take anything you have to say seriously? You see how that works, Andrew Stone? And all other Christians who ask questions or talk like this? Because all you've done is you've taken this mystery, like why nature is what it is, and you've just said, okay, we're going to grab that mystery, wrap it in a ball, and throw it into a big pit called God. Well, God just does it. I don't know. He just does it. He just speaks it. It's not helpful, is it? It might be comforting, I guess, to some. Okay, here's a question about family and when Trevor left.
I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand those on a natural level, and I think they're gorgeous nonetheless, and I think we can leave it at that.
All right, thank you for your super chat. So Miss Idemir.
Oh, I know this person. This is apostate prophet. Is that his name? The guy who is an atheist who speaks mostly against Islam. Sometimes he's with David Wood. This is his wife, I think. What would you want your Christian family and friends to know when they state their concern for your eternal life? I'm playing this question for a reason, because I was wondering if Cameron would say his position on hell is here.
Trevor, what would you want your Christian family and friends to know when they state their concern for your eternal life, salvation, or damnation? It's a really good question.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
What would you want your Christian family and friends to know when they state their concern for your eternal life?
I have no idea. It really depends on what you think is going to happen to me. I feel perfectly fine. I feel great. I am happy. I am loving this.
What he's saying right now, what Trevor's saying right now, is the reason why I think he'll never go back to Christianity. And this is, I think, something that a lot of Christians are going to agree with me on here. In order for someone to become a Christian, there has to be a need. There has to be that desire. There has to be something in them that will cause them to change their mind. And whether it's a good reason or a bad reason, that's irrelevant right now. And Trevor looks sincerely content, at peace. He is not scared of the concept of hell for one stinking second. Either am I. Because our confidence that it's not real is so sky high. It's unbelievable. In order for Christians to use this whole idea of eternal life, salvation, or damnation, to use that to cause us to change our mind, you have to convince us that heaven and hell exists first. Then we can talk about Jesus. I've said this for many years. The concept of hell, the traditional view at least, supersedes the belief in Jesus by far. Like, who cares about Jesus if there's no hell or heaven? Right? What the heck do we need Jesus for? You seriously think you need Jesus to have a content, peaceful life? If you're a Christian and you believe that, shame on you. Look around at the people on this planet. There are people that have, I would say, on any metric, more peace, happiness, joy, contentment, who believe in crazy crap like Scientology or any other, I don't know what. You don't need Christianity for that.
Journey of life. So I'm not worried about the afterlife being torment.
Holy shift, you're right. I love that name. Holy shift is right. Many Christians will hope calamity comes his way so he can drop to his knees and beg to their God, for their God. Yes, you're exactly right, Holy Shift. I wouldn't even be surprised if Cameron has prayed something similar to that for his brother Trevor. That something will trigger in his life, that he will be forced to hit rock bottom or be pulled down to his knees, because apologetics is not going to do it for guys like Trevor. It has to be something like, I don't know, God forbid, a death in the family or bankruptcy or an addiction he can't get over. And the thing is, if you want conversions to Christianity beyond the age of 30 into the belief, I think Christians who evangelize, who are missionaries, they realize what I'm about to say is true, or they would agree with me. The probability of success goes up the more desperate people are. If they're hungry, they're starving, divorce, death, tragedy, bankruptcy, you need that. My life has to be changed. I'm desperate for a change. Jesus is the answer. They need to be put in that position to see Jesus as the answer. And so for a guy like Trevor to say this,
great, I am happy, I am loving this journey of life, so I'm not worried about the afterlife being torment. So I guess I would say I appreciate I appreciate your concern, and I understand how real it is, real it feels, and so to you. But
okay, so there was a question on the book of Genesis that I found interesting here. And Cameron didn't reveal his cards of whether he still believes in eternal conscious torment, because I am quite sure that's what he at least used to believe. But if he's transitioning out of that belief, what's next? He's going to become a woke person. He's going to become a progressive Christian. The sky's the limit there if he gives up on the traditional view of hell.
And that's the exact opposite of who I feel like I am.
Okay. So Jim Wick, thank you for your super chat. Let's get to it. Why do you put so much confidence in an anti-science interpretation?
By the way, Jim Wick is the brother of John Wick, the famous movie star.
Of Genesis that came from people who you felt were poor thinkers and dishonest.
Why do you put so much confidence in an interpretation of Genesis that came from people? Wait, why do I put so much confidence in Genesis?
In the interpretation of Genesis that you believed growing up, that came from people who...
Okay, what this Christian, I'm quite sure it's a Christian because look, it could be Jesus himself asking this question according to the picture, the European Jesus. Why did you stick with this, or why did you think that the Genesis was talking about this anti-scientific view of origins and so forth? Don't you realize, Trevor, that there are scientists who accept the science of cosmology and evolution and all this stuff? Shame on you, Trevor, for just having this fundamentalist approach to Genesis, and then that's why you rejected it and saying it was anti-science, and therefore that led you to reject Jesus.
You thought,
right. Well, so now I do see it as mythology. Yeah, and I think mythology is amazing.
Well, you said that there are Christians who accept it, that accept evolution.
Yes, and so what I've heard is that the Bible wasn't written all in literal terms, and that it's a lot of storytelling and
there's a lot of different interpretations.
Yeah, a lot of storytelling. The problem is Jesus believed those stories in Genesis, which most scientists reject.
But their question is, why do you put, or maybe it's better this way, do you put confidence in like a young earth or a literal interpretation of Scripture?
I put no confidence in that.
Then just the interpretation, not like whether or not it's true, but just like what is the right interpretation of this Scripture. Do you,
Yeah. What is the right interpretation of Genesis chapter 1 and 2? Well, ask that question 2,000 years ago. Ask that question 3,000 years ago. Now ask that question in the year 2020 as a Christian. And I tell you, how many Christians 2,000 years ago would have said, oh, yeah, it's Genesis 1 and 2 is just, it's just allegory, it's just stories, it's not literal. And then as science progressed, as we learn things about our universe, then Christians kind of changed their mind on things. Say, oh, yeah, see how great our God is, how he used evolution to cause us to come about, and and then you got the Hugh Rosses of the world. You see how great our God is, how he used black holes and the expansiveness of the universe to allow us to have life on planet Earth, because if it wasn't that big and if we didn't have all this dark energy and dark matter and black holes, then we couldn't even have planets to be the way they were, and blah, 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 blah. Only after science comes up with these things, it's like Christians find ways to make it fit retroactively. It's like, come on, just at some point admit that you desire this belief so badly to give you hope, meaning, and purpose that you're just willing to make anything work so you can keep believing it.
you know what I'm saying? So like some people
I think the
read
right interpretation is probably that it's a myth. Is that what? Wait, say it again.
that it's literal. Like, okay, so when a lot of Christians just read Genesis, they'll just read it at face value
And
be
say
like,
this happened literally.
Yeah, like it was drawing a picture,
Right,
like
right,
of
right.
exactly what happened. And then other people will say, well, no,
Yeah, the question was worded in such a way that I think there was a assumption that maybe wasn't true or right. Okay, I want to get to whether or not Cameron was a fundamentalist. And like I said, if you came late to this live stream, I predicted he was a fundamentalist, like to the T, at least a few years ago.
Make it real.
So this was just a random question from somebody, the programmer. Did Cameron come from a fundamentalist background? And so what they mean by that is like, did I come from a background that teaches like young Earth creationism? Like yes.
Literal interpretation.
Yeah. So
yeah, for sure, right?
So yeah, for sure. Like we came from a background where it was made fun of in our home, the idea that the Earth is millions of years old.
Yes,
and
yes.
is billions
And that
of
made
years
me
old.
not.
So this puts some insight of where Cameron came from. Like Kent Hovind and Cameron were kindred spirits in terms of young Earth creationism and so forth. Like if you think about the changes that Cameron has been forced to make the last several years, as he's been seeking out evidence to confirm his own beliefs, he's been forced to read things that go against the young Earth creationist and all that sort of thing, and he's had to take a double take.
Not pay attention in a lot of science class, and
Yeah.
I wish I mean, I love.
We would come home and get the truth.
Yeah, it's tough. I do love learning now, and I wonder and wish, I guess, that I would have had that younger. But hey, it's all good.
Yeah. All right. Here's a good question. Another one from Carmel. She
Ooh,
says,
interesting.
What did you hate about being a Christian?
I'm going to give my answer first. What did you hate about being a Christian? There's several things that pop into my head. One is the whole light versus dark, treating people like you have your tribe, and then which is Christianity, and then everybody's outside that. Basically, it doesn't matter what religion you are. You're basically functional atheists because you're all going to hell in a handbasket. That's one problem. Another problem that I hated about Christianity is that I'm trying to think how to word this. That you always had to struggle. That there's this cognitive dissonance in you that constantly has to be suppressed, to use language from the preceptors. It's like you got the world out there, and they're tempting you to not believe or whatever, or sin. And so even though you really believe, Christianity was always a struggle. And I think even Christians would admit this, that Christianity is not easy to believe. To take up your cross and follow Jesus all the time is that, and when you do sin, it's that guilt that you've disappointed the Father, the creator of the universe, that he's actually going, oh, Doug, why did you do that? Why did you hurt me with that sin? And I truly think Christians, it's just, I feel so sorry for them. Sorry for them. It's like, you don't have to struggle. Just let it go. You'll be okay. You'll be just fine.
Interesting. I don't think I hated much. I think it was, I did have pressure to get out of my comfort zone.
Hypocrisy?
Oh, I mean, yeah, but I guess I was feeling like, what did you hate internally about, not so much about Christianity, right? About being a Christian.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's a good.
So it was like, it was really like reading my Bible. I just didn't enjoy it because I don't think I really got what it was talking about so
Christians are going to jump on that
often. And I just kind of, yeah, I knew I didn't understand so much to the point where even in conversation, I'd be really like worried and embarrassed.
See, this is why you love Christianity, because you just didn't know what you believed. You were ignorant of the true Christianity.
To speak on what I thought I knew, because I knew it was probably so wrong. And so I just like observed so often. I just listened. And so, yeah, there wasn't much I hated, but really it was that I couldn't get it all. I don't know. Not much.
All right. Andrew Basham. If you guys could live.
Okay. Next question I didn't like. Let's see here. Oh, now they talk about the historical evidence. So there's a Christian in the crowd who loves the historical evidence for Jesus. And so he or she asked the question on that.
A lot of value in the people there, for sure.
All right, so here's a question from Matt Boyer, and I'll try to make this quick. So he says, what are your thoughts toward the historical evidence for the resurrection? And so I was not in possession of this when we had our initial talks. But if I could boil it down to something.
You hear what Cameron just admitted here? When he first talked to his brother, when he left Christianity, he didn't know the historical evidence for the resurrection. That boggles my mind. I did.
Really quick, and then
when I left Christianity,
just get your like initial thoughts on it. It would be something like this. So we have really good historical evidence that the original like people who were there had some kind of experience of Jesus risen from the dead, and so they either like it was a hallucination or something, but they had some experience that Jesus rose from the dead after being killed, and he was there with them after he was dead. And so then the question is, how do we explain those experiences? Do we say that it's hallucinations? And the response to that is that a lot of these experiences are described as being in groups. So like in 1 Corinthians 15, Paul describes how...
See, this is everything Cameron is saying right now is presupposing or assuming that a lot of the stuff in the New Testament is true to begin with. And that's a huge assumption. Like most Christians, when they hear other theories like hallucination, they're imagining in their head that 500 people hallucinated, that all the disciples were lying or on drugs or hallucinated. You're assuming that there were 12 disciples to begin with, which, by the way, is not a minimal fact that there was 12, as Habermas would put it. You're assuming that when it says in 1 Corinthians 15 that the creed is true to begin with, that Jesus appeared to 500. What if it were the case that most of this stuff is just storytelling, fictional storytelling, most of it, not all of it, and that maybe one or two at most people had some type of personal experience, which you'll see all the time in Pentecostal churches, and that created a movement, slow movement, that grew and grew and grew. Now, but the average typical Christian cannot fathom that. They cannot fathom that the Gospel of Mark could be 90% fiction, which is the basis for all the other Gospels. It's just like, no, this is the historical genre, Doug. This is Greco-Roman biography. This is true. This is what happened in the past. It's historical documents. And they don't realize that there's a lot of ancient Greco-Roman biographies that's full of fantasy and fiction. So why couldn't the Gospels be, or even what Paul wrote? Okay, but let's hear Trevor's answer.
There was 500 people that saw Jesus at once. And so the response to the hallucination explanation is that it's just really unlikely that groups, because you can't have like a hallucination with your friend.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be experiencing two different things.
Well, people on drugs have hallucinated the same sort of things.
But the same sort of thing is not the same exact thing.
No, DMT people have.
But we don't even know if people saw the exact same thing, like with the 500, Jesus appeared to 500. This is why I always say, get a police detective, a sketch artist. Okay, what did this Jesus look like? Do that for all 500. Christians, do you really think that it would come close? You think? I think they do. I think they'll say that, yeah, Jesus stood before, in his resurrected body that could walk through walls, by the way, stood before all the 500, and to a sketch artist, they would have a pretty same likeness.
Like described the same little being. So I guess at the end of the day, I don't know. I think that's fascinating. It, I guess, could be miraculous.
Trevor, next time you're asked a question like this, you don't have to give specific examples, but say, in my view, it's more likely it's a fictional story based on the template of the Old Testament, that people created a narrative using the Old Testament to help explain what happened to their hero, Jesus, who was probably a apocalyptic preacher coming out of the Essene movement. Dun, dun, dun. But nobody knows for sure. Let's see here. Oh, this is a question about philosophy. This is for you, Nathan Ormond, and all the other people who love philosophy.
I don't know. None of them have really convinced me. So what do I think of them? I don't think they're true or consistent. Normally, in my case, I get stopped at like the first or second point, and I don't accept that most of the time.
And then you stop.
And then and then I can't continue on if I can't accept that first or second point. So that's normally what it is. And yeah, it's just never really shaken me or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't persuade him, doesn't convince him. And the point I like to make is, you want philosophical arguments for God? You can have all of them. Even the ontological argument, which is the argument from silliness. And all the other philosophical arguments are arguments from ignorance. But if you want them, have them. Preach them from the rooftops. Preach them in your sermons. Because for most people, it's not going to make one dime of difference. Even Christians, it might help bolster their confidence in times of doubt, but because the problem is, if you want to posit some type of God that fulfills all these philosophical arguments, you're still a million miles away that a man rose from the dead 2,000 years ago, who was God incarnate, who fulfilled all these prophecies and so forth. You got so much work to do after that. So if you want those philosophical arguments, you can have them. One question on the benefits of religion, I'm going to skip that, but I do think there's benefits of religion. And question about God being cruel.
Person trying to find their way, and for some people that is no religion, and for some people that is some sort of religion or a mixture.
All right, here's one from Roleplay Cafe. Trevor, do you think the view that the Old Testament God is cruel makes most Christians question their belief in God? Did this affect your change in your worldview?
Yeah, that was part of it, because I just didn't see the consistency on like who the person of God was and what his intentions were for the world and what his plans were, and they were very, very different from Old to New Testament. I mean, as far as I could tell. So
Christians listening, do you disagree with what Trevor just said? That the God of the Old Testament's different, at least a little bit, from the God of the New Testament? And if your answer is no, that you see a uniform, consistent picture from Genesis to Revelation, let me just say 4 words. Old covenant, new covenant. The fact that a lot of Christians even say things like old covenant, new covenant, kind of puts a little pressure on that whole idea of consistency, consistent thing from Genesis to Revelation, does it not? And if you, Christians, if you close your eyes and you just imagine Jesus with you right now, what feelings do you get? if I ask, what is this Jesus like? Describe Jesus to me. What adjectives would you use? Write it down on a piece of paper, what adjectives you would use to describe Jesus. Then I'll ask you to close your eyes and imagine Yahweh in 1 Samuel 15 when he gives the command to destroy the Amalekites. And write down adjectives to describe Jesus there, because most Christians are Trinitarian, believe that Jesus is God, God is Jesus. And now compare your adjectives. The adjectives of 1 Samuel 15, God, versus the adjectives of blessed are the poor in spirit in the Gospels. Do your adjectives match up? I don't think so. Now, sure, there's days I can become angry, and there's days I'm more loving than other days, and maybe God's just like humans, right? That has good days, bad days, anger days, and loving days, and merciful days, and justice days. But isn't it more likely that this God is more of a conjuring of man, that this God is made in the image, God's made in the image of man rather than the other way around? Doesn't that seem likely, at least a little bit too?
So yeah, certainly if we didn't have a New Testament and I had to look at that God and say, like, do I want to worship him? That would be tough. So, but that wasn't really the major part of it, I don't think. It was definitely more upfront hypocrisy that I saw in the church or Christianity, and then evolution and other scientific sort of.
Yeah, Trevor, that thank you for doing this with Cameron, but that's a horrible answer. One of the reasons why you left Christianity is because of hypocrisy. That kind of makes me think you might return to Christianity someday if that's one of your main reasons. If you're an atheist who left Christianity because of hypocrisy in the church, shame on you. You should leave it because you believe you're convinced it's not true. There's hypocrites and non-hypocrites in every belief system. Judge the propositions based on the propositions, not based on the people who believe the propositions. Can I get an amen from Christians right now?
Explanations of the universe, that all solidified it for me, really.
All right, here's the last question we'll take today. Russell Jones, thank you for saying.
Okay, the last question wasn't that interesting to me. So yeah, what was good about this is seeing the types of questions Christians feel comfortable to ask an atheist when it's in a mostly Christian atmosphere, Christian YouTube channel, mostly Christian live stream chat. And so you can see what a lot of Christians are thinking. And what they're thinking of is when they see someone who's left a deeply held belief like Christianity, that it has to be emotionally driven, which Trevor even mentioned, that he had these personal experiences, or that it wasn't rooted into the intellectual side of Christianity, and that he just didn't get the answers he needed and so forth. But what's also interesting is Cameron's epiphany, that he realized that apologetics did not work for his brother, and that he had to switch gears into just loving his brother and accepting him for who he was at first, or after he got through the defensiveness stage. Both of them were defensive with each other and combative with each other. But whether or not Cameron can love his brother so much back into the kingdom, I really doubt. Because, in fact, here's a challenge. Let's have a love off. Cameron, you love your brother as much as you can. And Trevor, if you ever reach out to me, I'll love you more. I take that back, because love involves commitment. Love's not an emotion, it's a choice. And I don't want to invest myself into a stranger like Trevor. You sound like a great guy, but somebody else can do it for me. Someone else can love on Trevor. Nathan Ormond asked, do you think you would have an apologetics YouTube channel if YouTube was around 20 years ago? Oh, good question, Nathan. No, I don't think so. I think even though I was a Christian, I wasn't passionate about evangelism, which most Christians aren't, by the way. And so I don't think I would have done something like that. Steve Smith, love ain't nothing but sex misspelled. No, I disagree. Love and sex are two different things. I love my dog. Well, never mind. Does Satan wear face masks? Great question, Beasto. Yes, at the home office in Wichita, Kansas, our boss, Satan, makes us all wear face masks. Because this is not news to anyone out there, right? That I am under the power of the evil one. Atheists walk among you. Your bank teller could be an atheist. Your doctor could be an atheist. That little old woman that you help across the street could be an atheist. They're everywhere. In fact, next time you're at church in the pew, look to your left, look to your right. Odds are you'll see an atheist there. Poof! My apologies to Cameron and Trevor Bertuzzi. They were scheduled to come on, but we ran out of time. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Take care, guys.